The turtle who forgot he had wings. Don't let anyone tell you what your limits are, you might just surprise yourself. Deep within the heart of the whispering woods, where the ancient trees grew so tall they brushed against the clouds, lived Barnaby. Barnaby was a small, bright-eyed tortoise with a smooth green shell and an unshakable spirit. He always wore a bright red headband and matching wristbands, a symbol of his determination to keep moving forward. But Barnaby had a problem. He was utterly tired of moving at the speed of a sleepy sloth. Every morning, he would watch the forest stretch and awaken. He saw the sunbeams dance through the leaves, but by the time he managed to crawl from his cozy burrow to the main dirt path, the morning was already half over. A wooden sign by the path read, "Slow is fine, but growth is better." Barnaby would stare at that sign, his little fists clenched. He didn't just want to grow, he wanted to move. He felt a deep, pulling sensation inside him, a whisper telling him that he was meant for something much grander than a life spent looking strictly at the dirt. One sunny afternoon, Barnaby stopped by a dusty crossroad, his heart heavy. It wasn't long before the other forest animals noticed him standing there. Gathering on the low-hanging branches and along the trail, they began to chuckle. An old, sharp-eyed owl leaned down from a thick oak branch, pointing a stern claw right at him. "You're built for crawling, Barnaby," the owl hooted dismissively. "Stick to the dirt." Around the tree trunk, a hyperactive squirrel bounced up and down, laughing loudly and pointing, alongside a smirking raccoon, a giggling rabbit, and a tiny chipmunk. A crude wooden sign nearby read, "Slow is so last season." Barnaby lowered his head, his wide brown eyes filling with sadness. His shoulders slumped forward under the weight of his shell. The words stung. Why did everyone think that just because he carried his home on his back, he could never touch the sky? He took a deep breath, looked down at his little red wristband, and made a quiet promise to himself. He would not let their laughter dictate his life. Barnaby retreated to his secret workshop at the edge of the forest clearing. Day and night, he worked tirelessly, surrounded by sketches, loose ropes, and tiny tools. He collected the most vibrant, sturdy autumn leaves he could find, crimson reds, glowing oranges, bright yellows, deep blues, and rich purples. With meticulous care, he wove them into a magnificent wooden frame, binding them with sturdy vines. As the golden sunlight filtered through the canopy, it struck the wings, making them sparkle as if they were embedded with thousands of tiny, glowing fairy lights. Adjusting the leather straps over his shoulders, Barnaby buckled himself into his brand new creation, a pair of giant, colorful rainbow glider wings made out of leaves and light. He stood proudly next to his blueprints, which were boldly marked with the words, "Dream big, fly high." Another sign he had carved himself stood tall in the grass, not just built for crawling. Built for more. The next morning, Barnaby marched up the steep, winding path to the highest peak in the valley, the jagged cliff overlooking the entire forest. He pulled a pair of vintage aviator goggles over his red headband, his heart hammering against his ribs like a trapped bird. Down below on the rocky ledge, the squirrel, the raccoon, and the owl watched him, their expressions shifting from mockery to absolute awe. With a mighty shout, Barnaby sprinted as fast as his little legs could carry him and leaped off the tallest rock. For a terrifying second, he plunged downward. But then, he spread his massive rainbow wings wide. They caught a warm, rushing updraft of mountain breeze with a loud whoosh. Barnaby didn't fall, he soared. He cheered with pure delight, throwing a triumphant fist into the air as he glided gracefully right over their heads. The wind rushed past his face, and the vast, winding blue river below looked like a tiny ribbon woven through a sea of green trees. The doubters on the cliff could only stare up, cheering and waving in disbelief. As the day began to fade, Barnaby landed softly on the highest peak of a distant mountain range. The sky turned into a breathtaking canvas of deep oranges, pinks, and purples as the sun dipped below the horizon, bathing the entire valley in a warm, golden glow. Barnaby stood at the very edge of the summit, his magnificent wings perfectly intact, looking out over the endless world he had finally conquered. He smiled warmly, realizing that his shell was never a prison. It was just the anchor that kept him grounded until he was ready to fly. He had proven to the forest, and most importantly to himself, the ultimate truth. Never let someone else's idea of your limits keep you off the ground. If you enjoyed Barnaby's inspiring adventure, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more magical stories.